Hello and welcome to the Tech and Sports podcast. Tech and Sports is a show about how technology is revolutionizing all the major sports as well as health and fitness. You can find it on your podcast service of choice. My name is Alex Coop and I'm here with the elegant Mandy Kovacs.
Why, thank you. Hello, everyone.
This week, Mandy spoke with Alexis Doré-Jonkis, a security intelligence expert at ESET, about some of the biggest cybersecurity risks at the World Cup, plus all the biggest news from the last week, new apps and wearables, and your weekly concussion update. But before we get to that, we would really appreciate it if you would review and rate the Tech and Sports podcast. We've been growing the show for the last few months, and we really appreciate all the support so far. And with that, sit back and relax because the Tech and Sports crew is entering the game.
All right, so we don't have too much news today, but stay tuned for some really cool apps and wearables updates later on in the episode. We're going to spend the first half of our news segment talking about tech at the World Cup, which obviously started last week and it's off to a great start from what I've seen so far. So the tournament this year is in Russia, and it's been sort of a test bed for new technology. We've talked about it before, but this will be the first World Cup to use video replay to help on-field referees with contentious match decisions. The setup is different than what we're used to with video replay, however, especially in North America. The World Cup will actually have a central team of 4 referees watching the game from a room in Moscow to determine if the refs are making the right calls on offsides, fouls, and other decisions. This team will have access to all the cameras on the field, as well as the goal line technology placed around the net to determine goals as well. So beyond video replay, on-field refs will also have special connected watches to interact with the off-field referees for any special calls, and the watches will also help them with more accurately calculate stoppage and extra time. The entire tournament will be broadcasted in 4K and 8K, and microchips in the balls will give fans some really interesting statistics. What's cool is that this ball data will actually be resold to EA Sports for incorporation into its future soccer video games. So we will be getting more interactive and hopefully accurate FIFA soccer game video games in the future. Cool.
Yeah, and it's also good to know that there's some added technology and or more people, more eyes looking at the game. This is a pretty good example of like tech being implemented in a game sort of non-intrusively. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the last World Cup, there was one specific play, and I forget who it was between, but the goal hit the crossbar and it went in, but the refs thought it didn't go in, that it hit the line, so it didn't count. So little things like that, this technology should really help.
Yeah, it makes all the difference.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And next, we have news that technology company SAP has introduced a new performance-enhancing technology platform, which will debut during the World Cup. The German team will be using the platform, which is essentially a content hub that merges a team's live videos of them during training and actual matches, and then identifies patterns and tendencies from that. This Sports One solution, as it's called, then crafts strategies that can improve play. But the interesting thing about this is you can also feed other teams' footage into it, and the platform will analyze it and create a strategy on how the team can address an opponent's potential weaknesses. Using the data, coaches and teams can provide players with personalized information in real time to help them play better. Team Germany has been a partner with SAP since 2013, which is right before it won the 2014 World Cup, so I would put my money on them based on all of this news. And then, speaking of, a World Cup roundup wouldn't be complete without some big data predictions on who's going to win the tournament. One sports data company called Opta Sports put together its predictions based on more than 2,000 individual data points. So Opta looked at on-ball actions like passes, shots, and the positions on the field where each interaction took place. And instead of focusing on individual player data, it chose to look at the performance of national squads at a team level from past games because, quote, teams that historically do well keep doing well. Germany would be a great example of that. So Opta said Brazil is the most likely champion with a 14.2% chance of winning, with Germany close behind with an 11.4% chance of winning for the second year in a row, or I guess the second tournament in a row. Even video game company EA Sports has announced a prediction, and with it guessing the last 3 World Cup winners correctly, I'm inclined to believe them. EA Sports ran a simulation of the tournament and predicted that Germany and France would meet in the finals, with France eventually winning the whole thing. And the last prediction I wanted to talk about comes from a company called Blue Yonder, which uses AI to predict how stocks fluctuate. And so they've done over 1 million simulations for this World Cup, and they have Brazil ranked as the favorites with a 22.5% chance of winning. So there you have it, folks. If you believe in tech and data, Brazil has the best shot, according to 2 different companies.
Solid predictions.
Right? I mean, not unexpected either, no. Right? Brazil, France, Germany. Brazil did kind of collapse in the last one.
Yep, I was just going to say they did get wiped off the map.
They did, which was kind of upsetting. But I don't expect them to repeat that.
No, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with their current roster right now, but I imagine that is still pretty fresh in their minds. So I think they will try very hard to avoid another collapse like that. So yeah,
that's for sure.
Good predictions.
All right, and now we have news that sports teams and musicians can now sell tickets directly to fans through their Snapchat stories, thanks to an integration with ticket search engine SeatGeek. This will be the social media platform's first ticket buying experience, and organizations with events at venues ticketed by SeatGeek can add the ticketing capability to their Snapchat, and users will just need to swipe up, select their seats, and check out, all within the app itself. So Snapchat started testing e-commerce capabilities like this earlier this year, with the LAFC being the first team to sell tickets like this on May 26th. Next up, champion boxer Errol Spence Jr. is supposed to post tickets for an upcoming fight in Dallas on his Snapchat story soon as well. So right now, SeatGeek only sells tickets for the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, obviously in Dallas, and where the LAFC play, obviously in LA, but expect them to potentially expand soon. We might even see Snapchat incorporate with bigger ticket purchasing platforms like Ticketmaster.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
I think that's a really cool way. I don't know if I would use it. That's almost too easy for me. It makes me a little suspicious, but...
Well, you could also, just buy the tickets off that guy in the corner and who has like a bajillion tickets. So, if that floats your boat more, then you still have that option.
Oh, yeah, scalping. Exactly. We are not advocates for that, but I don't know. Maybe we are.
No, this is definitely a pretty neat idea, and certainly I agree. Maybe wait and see as to how it performs, and then try it out for yourself.
Yeah, we'll get back to you guys. Okay, and next, last week we covered how Fox Sports was testing out 4K broadcasts and 5G networking speeds at the US Open, which wrapped up on Sunday. And now we also have news that they tested out ball tracing during the tournament as well. So every ball was apparently equipped with TrackMan radar technology, and 8 holes were set up to deliver a standard ball trace over live video with both club and ball data appearing on the screen, while the remaining 10 holes provided Fox Flight Track information, which is essentially a live tracking over a graphic representation of the hole that can be shown afterwards. And so Fox also debuted Feature Tees, which is a new offering that gives viewers real-time data for each tee shot, as well as updated leaderboards and individual advanced metrics. They've also placed microphones all around the fairways, but after the first couple days of the tournament, the only things that were really heard were fans yelling ridiculous things. So I don't know if that experiment really worked out for them, but I mean, it was funny as someone who's entertained very easily.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And also, I'd like to know more about the durability, or how they make the technology in the ball durable, because it is taking a lot of abuse as it's being smashed around.
Really hard.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what exactly goes into making sure that thing stays intact as it's being smashed across the golf course. So that's pretty cool.
That's an interview idea. Yeah, we'll get back to everyone again. And then just to wrap up the news today, I have one more World Cup related story, so I'm really sorry. Facebook's Oculus Venues app will be live streaming selected World Cup games for free via Fox Sports. So if you have an Oculus Go or a Samsung Gear VR headset, you can use this at no cost. Specifically, the games are Portugal versus Morocco on June 20th, as well as Brazil versus Costa Rica on June 22nd, and England versus Panama on June 24th.
Yeah, those are pretty good use cases. Oculus Go is kind of gaining more traction. The portability of it is certainly a plus. So, we'll be interesting to see what the numbers are if and when they come out in terms of who's using it or how many people are using it. But yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get those numbers quickly after the tournament ends.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for our news. Now we're going to move on to our new apps and wearables segment.
Alrighty. So recently, Sixth Man Apps announced the release of Diamond Metrics, which is a follow-up to its Hoop Metrics basketball app. Diamond Metrics can do the numerical work for more than 100 different types of baseball stats, and then users will have the ability to gain better insight on almost every moment of the game, beginning with the pitch to the batter hitting the ball, and as a result, users can determine fielding alignments, batting orders, and then determine kind of what works best under certain circumstances on the field. Just to add to that, it's only available on iOS devices.
Yeah, go iPhones. I'm in such a minority right now, I think, but
no, I think it's. I think a lot of people have iOS devices. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
We just get a lot of hate because we work at a tech company.
That's right.
And most people are Android here.
Okay, yeah, you're right about that.
But no, that's cool. I mean, that sounds like exactly what we cover, right? How do we make technology easier and more accessible to people within sports? So that's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd also like to note Your Call Football app, which recently debuted its live calling capabilities back in May, I believe. Recently had a much more interesting use case as two teams called Power and Grit, made up of former players from programs such as Alabama, Notre Dame, and USC. They faced off against each other at the historic Dodger Town in Florida. And so the interesting thing about this is that every play was called by the fans. And over a 3-game series, so this took place in May, and over the 3-game series, fans called roughly 295,000 plays and picked up $50,000 worth in prizes. And it worked. I think it's kind of like the biggest news out of this is that like there was, the zero latency behind all this actually came through, and fans were able to call plays in real time. And apparently, according to the stories that I've read so far, like players responded to it really positively, and it even shocked the coaches and managers that were involved. So that's really cool. And as a result, apparently 2 YCF players were actually signed to NFL rosters as a result of the exposure they got. Apparently, Grit defensive tackle Ashad Mabry went to the Panthers, and power tight end Wes Saxton to the Lions. A couple more players, 5 more players were invited to NFL minicamps, and 7 more were signed to the CFL. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And lastly, the National Basketball Association has signed a multi-year deal with 15 Seconds of Fame. The agreement will see the social media app use facial recognition tech to provide NBA fans with their video appearances at live games. So if you see your face on the Jumbotron, you get a kind of a notification through the app that you kind of make a little highlight reel for yourself and kind of collect these memories in real time. So through your phone. So
man, this is what I've been looking for like a year now. I was at a Toronto Blue Jays game last summer for the Canada Day game, or was it even 2 years ago now? I don't know, whatever. But I made it onto the Jumbotron, and I was so excited, and I tried to whip out my phone, and I did manage to get a picture of myself on the Jumbotron, but it's super blurry. It's like, it's not a great picture, and I mean, it shows my excitement, but it doesn't show, I don't know, it's not a good looking picture. And so this app would make that so much easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, no more asking your family or friends back home to, okay, you watch the game on TV, and if you see me, make sure you record it.
Yeah, like DVR it or something. Yeah.
So very cool. And this actually has already been out, I believe, in the NFL and MLB leagues. So the NBA is joining that group.
Cool. Everybody check it out.
Alrighty. That's it for our new apps and wearables section. So let's move on to our concussion update. So Daniel Carcillo made a lot of noise on Twitter recently. The former NHL player opened up about the head traumas he sustained during his time in the NHL and how that impacted his life since he walked away from the league. The video segment and the story, which appeared on the Players Tribune, has 3,000 retweets and many more through other various accounts. And Daniel references a lot of things that occurred after he walked away from the game in terms of like the side effects that he had. They range from like mental issues, emotional issues, like physical pain, lack of sleep, and just like a whole host of after effects as a result of the of concussions. And he references a lot of other alternatives or things that the NHL could do to help in this regard. The brain plasticity centers was one thing that he pointed out, and he said these centers are a great way for players to rehabilitate themselves and just simply like get the information they need as to like what is happening to their brain and what the diagnosis is and how to recover from it. So it's a pretty touching video segment. You should go check it out. It's all over the internet at this point. And these plasticity centers, they go through everything from hand-eye reaction test, balance assessments, and smart therapy, and a lot more. So it's really interesting and certainly a very important story to talk about.
Yeah, like I think it's gotten over like 2 million views now at this point.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it for the first time the other day and I cried watching it. I mean, I've had a concussion that's been pretty bad and it's affected my life. It still does right now. So like I totally understand what he's talking about. And I mean, I've just had it from like 1 or 2 concussions, right? The fact that he was an enforcer, he played for so many years, probably had above 50 concussions, let's be real. And one of his friends and former NHLers, Nick Boyton, also released like a story or article on the Players Tribune as well, talking about how he's been suicidal. He like can't even get out of bed some days. He can't even bring himself to travel down to California to see his 2 daughters. Like it's really just, it's so sad about how bad these concussions really affect them later on in life. And I think they're absolutely right in criticizing the NHL for not doing anything because their concussion spotters are useless. Let's be real. Like Marc-Andre Fleury played after getting hit in the head for like another couple minutes and was out for weeks. And I think it was even months this season, right? Before coming back.
Yep.
Like they just don't do a good job. And you can't even have necessarily normal athletic trainers or doctors even checking for this because this is such a specialized niche area. You need an actual concussion expert or someone that deals with head trauma in locker room or watching these types of things. Yeah,
you need the experts and you need the right technology to assess these things, and you're not going to get that just on the bench during a game or after the game. Like it takes special care to sort of analyze the problem and like the symptoms. And I think Carcillo said it best at the end. He had a very powerful quote in terms of it was that no, he doesn't love the NHL, but he loves the game. And yeah, the NHL has a lot of work to do in this regard.
Yeah, and he even like came up with a suggestion. He was like, he's working with an institute down in Florida in Orlando that's like kind of testing and doing all of these technology related concussion tests. And he was like, the NHL should partner with them. Why not? That'll get players back into the game faster. It'll cost less overall. You'll still get that engagement from fans because their players are not being kept out for weeks or months after concussions. But the NHL still hasn't even admitted that there's a connection between head trauma and hockey. So I don't think we'll see that anytime soon.
No, unfortunately not. But those brain plasticity centers are certainly something that the league should look into. And if you watch the video, you kind of get a good inside look as to what they do there. But until the problem is even addressed at a very surface level, I don't think that partnership or of anything like that is going to happen soon.
No, unfortunately.
No. And lastly, the federal government committed $1.4 million and has tasked Parachute Canada with developing new concussion protocols that can be applied to all sports. So Parachute Canada, whose mission statement is injury prevention and saving lives, was asked to get 20 sport organizations to sign on within a year of getting this all started. But apparently the uptake has been much faster than that, according to a story in the Globe and Mail. In a statement last week, the organization said winter and summer sport organizations funded by Sport Canada are either on board with the concussion guidelines or are at least working to get there. So that's good news.
Yeah, that's definitely progress.
Yeah.
I know the NHL, I guess, is a private organization, but I kind of wonder if the federal government has, they've initiated this type of project. And if they actually come up with something that would help, like Sports Canada, regulate things, I wonder if that would get passed down to the NHL. I mean, again, I know it is a private company, so they can't force them to do anything, but maybe it'll help them push them in the right direction.
Well, that's the thing. It's just added outside pressure that might push them in the right direction, or, sort of force them to do something. But yeah, they are a private organization, and they're just going to look at this from the outside, and fingers crossed, hopefully they go like, okay, there's a lot of uptake in action in these types of projects and organizations coming together to combat this problem. And maybe we should do something as well. But well, we'll see what kind of trickle down effect this will have in the NHL.
Yeah. Like we use this as a PSA, so maybe all of this awareness will change things.
Hopefully. Alrighty, that's it for our weekly concussion update. Let's move on to our discussion. For this week's discussion, Mandy had a chance to speak with Alexis Dore-Jonkis, a security intelligence expert at ESET, about some of the biggest cybersecurity risks for fans, teams, and even venues at the World Cup, which kicked off last week. He talks about what we should be looking out for and how people can protect themselves. So let's hear what he has to say.
The World Cup is a huge event, and it's starting this week on the 14th, and it goes well into July. So I would love to know a little bit more about some of the more common cyber threats that are related to large sporting events like this, and whether or not there are any specific security risks linked to the World Cup.
Well, there are common cyber threats in any large sporting event, such as the World Cup. One of the main ones is scams. So lots of scams directed towards fans. So scammers will offer fake tickets, even cheap accommodations. This year we're seeing fake lotteries as well. So there are lots of fake messages that will announce that you are the winner of a special World Cup lottery, and you just need to provide a few personal details to claim your prize.
Oh dear, those aren't good.
Not very good, no.
So how do fans protect themselves from something like that?
Well, first, if something looks too good to be true, that's because it is. In any large, very popular event, scammers will try to offer really enticing promotions or even free stuff. It's too good to be true. People need to be careful, think twice before entering those personal details. That's the most important thing to remember.
Mm-hmm. And what about other scams that may target people like the actual teams themselves, or even the organizers of the event, or the venues? Because, I mean, all of these venues are getting more and more connected. So are there any targets within those as well?
So for the teams and organizers, it's a different type of threat that surrounds them. It won't be scams, but more attacks that will try and spy on them. Like, for example, they could be a target for stealing their strategies or playbook for the games. This kind of threats. And for the event organizers, it's even more complicated. We've seen in the past cyber attacks directed towards the organization itself, trying to disrupt, for example, the opening ceremonies at the last Winter Olympics, trying to really create a mess around the ceremonies. So it's a very more difficult thing to thwart, but I'm sure now organizers know about this risk, and they need to handle it properly.
Mm-hmm. What precautions do you think they're taking to make sure, like you said in the Olympics when the Wi-Fi went down, how do you know that they're making the same effort to protect the World Cup?
Well, for one thing, they know that it's not only a theoretical risk, but we've seen these attacks happened in real life, and so they will deploy. I hope they will deploy all the common cybersecurity defense mechanisms, the best there is. That includes network security, endpoint protection as well, and ongoing monitoring of everything that's going on their network. And hopefully that will be enough, at least to detect any attempts to get into their network.
Mm-hmm. And do fans also need to worry about, like, let's say they do have tickets to go to the World Cup, they don't have to worry about the lottery scandals or anything, but do they need to worry about where they book their flights or where they book their accommodations from? Are there cyber threats within those as well?
Yeah, we've seen fake pages mimicking reputable hotels, for example, that will offer very large discounts. So my advice to people planning their trip is to really look for the real pages, not follow any links inside incoming emails, but to really look for the legitimate websites of any airline company or hotel providing these services. That's really important.
Mm-hmm. And now this year's World Cup is in Russia, actually. So does that change anything? I mean, given that they're quite strong within the cyber security and cyber attack kind of sphere, and I mean, there's quite a number of allegations of hacking as well. So does that change anything?
That's true that lots have been said surrounding Russia's capabilities in the cyberspace, but I don't think it changes anything for fans. For example, the scam artists that will try and make a quick buck, they don't really care where the event is going to take place. They can operate from anywhere in the world, so the same precautions apply for an event in Russia or anywhere else in the world.
Okay. And I guess my last question is just whether you've heard of any scandals or scams happening already. Maybe not necessarily fan-oriented, but towards the organizers, towards the venues, towards the teams. Have you heard of anything so far?
Nothing yet. What we've seen is really targeted towards the fans. All these scams I mentioned before, we've been seeing them for weeks now. Most go through email, also on social media and even the WhatsApp chat application, but nothing specific to towards the organization itself.
Perfect. Well, those were all of my questions. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about or something that I didn't touch on before we go?
There's one thing above cybersecurity or the online threat. There are also some threats for travelers that will be on site for the event. Russian officials warn about the use of fake ATMs that are actually just made to steal or to copy debit card information and PIN codes. So it's quite important to watch out for these fake ATMs. And the advice we give is to look for modern ATMs that are located in high traffic areas, less likely to be fake ones.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate this.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks to everyone who listened. This is episode 48. It's amazing. Thank you to everyone who has listened to us at any point throughout this journey. Just a reminder that we're also now in a daily format if you'd rather listen to us that way. You can also follow us on Twitter at ITB Tech and Sports or our personal accounts at Mandy V. Kovacs and It's Just Alex Coop. So thanks again, everyone. We appreciate it.